If you want to present an object from different views, the problem we will face is if you also want to utilize a construction approach to really make sure that what you draw is also visually correct. Because again, sometimes what we think something has to look and the way how it really has to look when we construct it are two different things. Sometimes our eyes and our mind try to trick us. So far, actually, by selecting the parallel 60-30 or 30-60 and the 45-45 view, we have already three rotations or three different views we can select. Two, for example, with the parallel perspective to show an object more straight on from the front. So we have the front and the top face or the bottom face based on how you rotate it. The left and the side part we don't really see. And then we have the 60-30 or 30-60 based on if you put it to the left or to the right, which puts an emphasis on one side, shortens the other side, and you also have the top part. And then we have the 45-45, which evens out prospectively the left and the right side, and you also have the top side. Technically speaking, we only have three perspective views. You can see maybe we can rotate it to 5 different or 4 different ways. However, this is actually very sufficient already. Those are also standardized views, and they actually are really, it feels like we don't really have a lot of options, but you will see by working with 30-60, 45-45 in the parallel, that's actually sufficient to quickly represent all your parts. Plus also if you want to make different variations of an object or so, this is an easy way also to always reproduce also the same perspective, distortion, or foreshortening feel, and also drawing an object from the same viewpoint. So while it has maybe to a certain degree some limitations, not being perfectly freely able to rotate an object in a construction method, at the same time we also make sure that repetitively our drawings will have the same perspective look. So let's take a look at how we can utilize parallel, 45, and 60-30 view in a product representation. What you see here is a toaster I modeled. And for example, if I go into this view and maybe rotate my camera a little bit, kind of like this, this is pretty much like a 1 point or parallel perspective view. So you can see the top part and the front face of the cube. And of course, here if I show the cube, you can see how inside that cube I projected the toaster product into it. We can also actually make use of this view, so the 1 point, by simply drawing the toaster like it is laying on the ground. This actually will, in my drawing, then feel like I am standing above the toaster and look straight down into it. And today I also showed you the 2-point perspective parallel approach to combine kind of like a 1-point perspective look with the help of the 2-point perspective construction, and then also the shifting. So for example, if I move this one around, so you see this is all still principally using 1-point perspective. If you pay attention to the horizontal lines and the vertical lines, you see they all do not change, just everything that goes to the vanishing point changes. And this way, for example, I can show kind of like the top part, the front, and the side. But because these lines are parallel, and the further, for example, I move them to the right, this, for example, clearly now looks very odd and very distorted. So my cone of vision center is somewhere here. So this object actually gets close to the cone of vision. And maybe if I go even this way, yeah, so if I want to use this perspective view, you should still maintain something like this, or as I said, maybe have a slight shift. So maybe you can see a little bit of the side, but don't go too strong. It will look distorted. So that's, for example, how you could use 1-point parallel perspective view for showing the top or the front. And of course, I mean, that's still the same, kind of like now I rotated my object 90 degrees and I represent more the front part and I can see the top part. Now a 45 would be kind of like this. So this would be from the top view, and then if I rotate down, you see that proportionally the left and the right side have the same perspective distortion feel. And then it's up to you to decide kind of like how far you move those parts down, or how far you move, for example, a cube to the left, to the right. Well, actually 45, it has to remain, of course, this way. So scratch that left and right. So with 45, we only go up and down. And that, for example, this way with the, let me for a second change this a little bit. Let's zoom in. So for example, when I bring the toaster closer to the ground, sorry, I meant if I put my viewpoint closer to the ground or along the horizontal line. So it means on my page, I move the reference cube and the toaster up. You see that now this toaster looks like a house. It's really dynamic. It's not necessarily really explaining well all the details, but also think about sketching and presentation of products or objects. It's not necessarily all about mechanical drawings. It's all about, in addition, besides explaining the functionality or something, to make people excited about your object. So you can have a teaser picture, for example, that has a really nice, dynamic, and strong perspective look that gets people excited, and then they continue looking at your sketches. And then in addition to this one, of course, we can have other more informative views. So this, for example, would be then something like a 60-30 or 30-60, based on if you go left and right. You see one side, you see more, the other side, you see less. So the perspective distortion on those, or foreshortening, works differently. And then there again, it is all about like deciding where you put your object along the horizontal line, up and down. And in the first part of the video, I mentioned, sadly, we can't really just quickly rotate this way when we want to make use of the standardized construction method. Otherwise, those perspective looks, then we all have to sketch by hand. But if I really am honest, if I have something like this or like this, so a switch between 45 and a 60-30, the difference is not really that dramatic. So again, those three views we have, parallel, 45, 30, 60, are actually really sufficient to perfectly explain an object. And then also we can make use of the vertical position of an object to make it more informative or to make it more dynamic.